This is going to be a Mexican day. We're going to do three bean chili, and we're going to do vegan pulled pork. And we're also going to do a mac and cheese, which can also be a chili mac. And I'm also going to show you how you can make nachos out of the same sauce. So that was sort of a bonus I threw in there. There is absolutely no reason to use oil when you're sautéing onions. They have enough liquid in it that you can cook them without any oil at all. You're welcome to ask questions anytime during this presentation if you have any. Sure.
Was that a red onion you were using?
I'm sorry?
A red onion?
A red onion. I like red onions better than any time I get a chance to use red onions. I use that over white or yellow onions, and that's because they're higher in phytonutrients. They're higher in antioxidants. Pardon me? Yeah. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. If you want to caramelize onions, that's kind of an interesting business when you're not using oil. What you do is you let it start turning your pan brown. And as you don't want it to burn. There's a fine line between turning it brown and letting it burn. But as it starts to sort of scorch the bottom of your pan, then add a little bit of, I use vegetable stock. And that will pull the caramelization that's sticking to your pan back onto your onions. No, not if I could. I can't say I never do. I don't if I can avoid it. When I'm making Ethiopian bread, I have to use nonstick because that's the only way you can get it off of there. But my pan is a ceramic pan. I can talk to you a little bit about the beans I'm using. I'm using pinto beans, red beans, and black beans. And the red beans are dark red kidney beans. There's something, you can of course use canned beans if you want to, and I would recommend that you get organic. I cook with organic ingredients as much as possible, almost exclusively. And I don't really like to buy ingredients in cans. I'd much prefer to make them to cook them myself, and I freeze them in these little Pyrex containers. But it's important when you cook beans to let them soak overnight, or let them soak at least 5 hours, and then you need to boil them at least 10 minutes before you turn off the heat, before you reduce the heat. And what that does is there's a lectin in beans, and specifically in high concentrations in red beans, that can cause gastric problems. And if you boil beans for 10 minutes, it deactivates that lectin. It's called phytohemagglutinin. And so cooking them for 10 minutes deactivates it, and then you're fine. If you put beans into a slow cooker and start cooking them without having boiled them first, it actually increases the toxicity of the bean. So that's why it's important to boil your beans first. And that's why I like to do my own cooking, because I know what's in, I don't know how a canned producer has handled mine. So I prefer to use, I prefer to do it myself. And you can also do it in huge quantities, freeze it, and just pull out what you need as you need it. It makes it very easy. It takes it roughly the same time to cook, and so why not? Yeah. Yeah, these are glass Pyrex containers. We're putting, I should have done this before, and I frankly forgot about it. We're putting bell pepper and a little celery in it too. And you have the recipe. I've made this probably, I think it's the same recipe. Some of these recipes I have increased the proportions a little bit just so that I made sure I had enough to feed everybody. And we can go ahead and put the garlic, not that garlic. I didn't write that down there, and I can't really tell you. If you email me, I can tell you because I have it on my regular recipe. You can. As a matter of fact, I had this demo set up for, I had bought all the ingredients to do a demo at the Southwest Virginia Higher Education Center. And there was a big snowstorm, so it was canceled. So I had like $200 worth of ingredients that I had to do something with. So I just made tons of chili and put it in my freezer. I was making all kinds of things. It was a really ambitious class. And I did a Southwestern quinoa, and I did tamales, and not tamales, burritos, and all kinds of stuff. And I just took that and so we'll just let this cook for a minute, and we can go ahead and add this. The thing that you don't want to add first when you're making chili is you want to wait until your onions and garlic are completely done, because tomatoes will retard the cooking of your other vegetables. And so you want to make the vegetables, you want to cook them to the degree that you want them done before you add the tomatoes. Otherwise, you have to cook them much longer. Pardon me? That was red beans, kidney beans, and I put the juice in as well. These are black beans. And I'm using a little more than the recipe calls for. And these are the pinto beans. Yeah, I went ahead and added the garlic. There's enough moisture in here that the garlic's fine. If you add the garlic too soon, it's likely to scorch. And this garlic, I chopped it before I left home, so it had plenty of time to become active. By the way, I have to say, I love these things. I got them at, I don't know, Walmart maybe for $1, and they're fantastic for any cookware you have. They're made of bamboo. I'm going to cover this and let it cook for just a minute, and then we're going to add our spices. So we're going to use this spice blend. It's a Southwestern spice blend. It's just chili spice, not to be confused with the Thai chili pepper, which is just pure pepper. We're using 4 tablespoons in this. I've added a little. It's just chili. It's a Southwestern chili blend.
Oh, okay, you're saying blend. Okay.
Yeah.
Where did you get that?
I can't remember. You can probably get it in any grocery store. You can get it in, and I think I put 4 in there, but I might have put 5, but it won't hurt it. I'm so easily distracted, you have to keep an eye on me. So we put 4 tablespoons of this spice. I use a tablespoon of cumin. By the way, this is a terrific way to keep spices in little ball jars. They're fantastic. So we're going to use a tablespoon of cumin or cumin. Depends on how you like to say it, I suppose. And I like to spread it around a little bit so it doesn't clump in one area. We're using 1½ teaspoons of ground coriander. Just making sure nothing's sticking to the bottom.
What temperature do you store your spices, dry spices?
I just keep them in a drawer in my house, whatever temperature my house is. I try to keep them in a, this also, I have a big drawer, and I just put them in alphabetical order in the drawer. As long as you keep them out of the light and keep them sealed, they're in pretty good shape. Spices, anybody here object to spicy food? Okay. You do? Pardon me? Well, we can take some and put it aside for you, and so we won't put the cayenne in yet.
Oh my God, yes.
Oh yeah, what is life without cayenne? Well, you're eating Mexican food, and Mexican food is spicy. Cayenne, and we're.
No, the spot, we say in the restaurant.
And I'm putting a teaspoon of salt. You should limit your use of salt. You don't use salt at all.
I mean, go ahead, but
I don't tend to use salt myself, but when I'm cooking for other people, I do, because so many people have not acclimated to that. But for this amount of food, a teaspoon is very little. And what I like to do is not salt food and just put a salt shaker on, or salt on the table. If somebody wants it, they can have it. Okay. I'm going to let it cook just a little bit more to soften those. By the way, hitting your pan like this is a terrible habit. Don't do it. I've been trying for 30 years to break myself of that habit, but I can't seem to do it. The best way to do it is like this. Because for one thing, it forces the food down to the bottom of your pan so that it sticks more, is more likely to scorch. And for another reason, it can dent up the edge of your pan, especially if you're using a metal utensil. If you have a pressure cooker, it can completely destroy the seal on your pressure cooker. So it's really not a good idea to whack the side of your pan. But it's a habit I am having a difficult time breaking myself of. No, I'm going to do that right now. And I can my own tomatoes, and I prefer to use that. I buy tomatoes when they're in season, and I buy a ton of them, and I spend a weekend canning, and it gives me tomatoes for the rest of the year. If you want to use canned tomatoes, you can do that. I brought an extra can just in case, but I think we'll just need two. Looks good too. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I'm going to move this over here, and then we're going to start on another dish. And we'll let this simmer for a little while. This is the story of my life. I forgot that I put in a cup of corn. That's a relatively new addition to for this recipe. I never grew up using corn, but I kind of like it. In chili, I never used I never added corn, but I like it, so I add it now, and it gives it a nice little color. I just use a cup for this. It was frozen organic corn. In the summertime, I of course use fresh. Okay, it just gives it a nice little color and a little more nutrition. So now the next one, the next dish we're making is vegan pulled pork. So this is an interesting dish and you will be amazed. I just wanted to show you this can. This is chipotle seasoning and adobo sauce. It is a spicy pepper, and it usually comes in big peppers in here. And what I do is I puree them and put them in this little Pyrex dish, and it will keep in your refrigerator literally for months. And then you can just take a teaspoon out and use it as you need it. I just wanted to show that to you. This barbecue sauce is a homemade barbecue sauce. The recipe is in my book. To me, it's the best darn barbecue sauce in the history of the world, if I do say so myself, but you can use a commercial barbecue sauce for this recipe if you choose. Now this is jackfruit. I just want to show you guys. So I got this in a can. This is green jackfruit. Jackfruit grows on a tree, but it's like a watermelon. It's a big, thorny looking watermelon. And it grows on this huge tree, and it can get up to 60 pounds, and it just hangs from a tree like a date. It's an amazing plant. It's found in India and in Southeastern Asia. And you can get it ripe or you can get it green. And when it's ripe, it tastes somewhere between a mango, a pineapple, and a banana. But when it's green, it has almost no flavor at all. And this is what it looks like in the can. You know, these little triangles. And what you have to do is you have to kind of squeeze them or take a fork and pull them apart, and it will give you more of the appearance of pulled pork. And another thing I like to do, because these are preserved in brine, is I like to soak them in water and rinse them a couple of times to try to get some of the salt out of it. And I'm going to drain this.
Where do you get this?
You can get it in any Asian grocer. We're hoping that Bare Essentials may start carrying it once they discover how absolutely delicious this is, and once the word is out. It ranges in price anywhere from $1 to $2.50 a can, depending on where you get it. Indian grocers will carry it as well. I don't know about here, but you can get them in Johnson City, Kingsport, and at Lemon Sue's in Abingdon. You can get it at the Stock Pot, which is an Asian grocer in Johnson City, behind Sam's, and there's a Spice World, is an Indian grocer in Johnson City in the state of Franklin. They carry it. And but I believe you'll have somebody carrying it once they figure out how good this is. Amazon carries it, but it's ridiculously expensive. I have a friend who tried to order it on Amazon, and she says, well, I mean, it was like $6 a can or something crazy like that. You know, I wouldn't get it from Amazon. Okay. So this requires very little effort. If sometimes this is very tough when it comes out of the can, and if it is, put it in a microwave for about 10 seconds or 20 seconds and just get it. You don't want to get it hot, just enough to warm it up slightly, and then it becomes very, very pliable. Okay, so again, we're going to use the chili spice. We're going to use a tablespoon of this. This is not spicy. You know, it's a lot of spices, but it's not hot. We're going to use 1/4 cup of brown sugar, and it's fairly packed. You can use date sugar if you like. The advantage of using date sugar is that it's a whole food. It's just ground up dates, and it does not affect your blood sugar or triglycerides. And it does not make you gain weight. There were a number of studies done with that. It only has positive effects on your blood sugar and your triglycerides. This is so simple, you won't believe how good it is. Now I'm saying that and you'll probably hate it. Okay, we're going to use a tablespoon of paprika. I'm going to use smoked paprika because it gives it more of a smoky flavor. And these amounts of spices are, individual. If you like it spicier than that, you can add more spice. I'm going to put a little chipotle chili in this. A teaspoon is plenty.
You get us hungry.
Well, good. We're going to have a lot to eat, so I hope you're hungry. We'll mix this up really well. I used to, when I first made this, I have a stovetop smoker and I smoked it myself. And I used hickory and I've tried different things. But smoking food is really not very good for you. And this stuff has been tested and it's not really, there's nothing harmful in this. We're going to put a teaspoon of onion powder and a teaspoon of garlic powder. I should have done that before I got the chipotle. I like using the powders instead of onion and garlic. I use the powders for this because it has a more intense flavor. And 1 to 1.5 cups of this barbecue sauce. This is barbecue sauce from my cookbook, and that's an estimate. You can put whatever you think it needs. I like it real wet. So I tend to use more than maybe somebody else might use. And now we're going to put the secret ingredient, which is this liquid smoke, and that's what makes it taste like pulled pork. How much do I have here for this? I put a tablespoon. Chances are I'll actually use 2. And the reason is because I tend to put more sauce than I originally called for. My recipes change every time I do it, so make these the way you like it. Any questions?
Yeah, can we just follow you around with your demonstration?
Sure.
Where are you going to be next?
I don't know. I'm going to put another spoonful of this in.
Yeah.
Does this smell like pork to you? Not yet? And this is probably enough. I'm going to put another tablespoon in.
How does this taste cold? Like if you think of going to a barbecue and bringing it as a dish and you're thinking, does it need to be hot to really?
I don't think so. I haven't tried it, but I don't think so. I've certainly taken it out to reheat it, and I don't remember if I tasted it before or after, but I never felt that it's lost flavor. Okay, so that's done. And we'll let this sit for a little while, and I probably should stir this and make sure nothing bad's going on here. So I'm going to take some of this out and set aside.
Yeah.
So for the people who can't handle the spice.
Just the three of us now.
Yeah. I think that's probably plenty right there. And we can zap it in the microwave if we need to heat it up. It's amazing how much this tastes like pork. I have a neighbor who is a diehard carnivore, and he really loved this dish. He says, I just can't believe that. I'm going to be making mac and cheese now. So now I usually, by the time your water is boiled and your macaroni is done, this dish is finished. It's a very quick dish. And, but I'm not used to an electric stove, so we'll see how it goes. Okay, so the first thing we do with this no cheese mac and cheese is you put water on to boil. And we're going to be cooking our, this is like a 12-ounce potato. This is actually probably about 13 and a half because I wanted to make enough. And you just put enough water in it to steam it. And,
Is that water or chicken broth?
I'm sorry, this is not chicken broth. We're vegans here. This is a vegetable broth. Anytime, almost any time you use water, it's better to use a vegetable broth because vegetable broths have all the nutrients for the vegetables. You can make it literally from scraps. And I always save my kale stems and my collard stems and put them in a bag in the freezer. Mushroom ends, pieces of onion, pieces of carrots. Never use the outside of an onion in stock because it will make it bitter. The only time you want to use the outside skin, the brown skin of an onion, is if you want to have a beautiful amber color, and then you put it in only for 3 to 5 minutes at the end of the making the stock. But yeah, it will make your stock bitter, but you can put all kinds of stuff. You can tailor your stocks for different things. If I'm doing a Vietnamese stock, I might want to use something with an anise flavor in it, you know, like anise, like fennel, because that's really delicious in a Vietnamese soup. I use cabbage. I use all kinds of stuff. You can use the little core of cabbage. You put carrots. You can stick a potato in there. It just depends. Just whatever you have scraps of, just throw them in your stock.
Are garlic skins, do they do the same thing?
I would not use garlic skins. I don't know that it would, but I don't use it. I would throw garlic in there, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, if I felt like it, you know, you also put garlic in your meal. But anytime you have an opportunity to increase flavor and nutrition at the same time, why not? What was it that I made that I said was better without? I made something recently. I made one thing recently.
That peanut.
Oh, the Ethiopian peanut soup that I make, which is wonderful, and it is in my cookbook that's coming out. I prefer to use water with that because the vegetable stock interferes with the flavor. And so I prefer to use water with that. Have y'all roasted red peppers?
You mean bell or red?
Red bell peppers? Pardon me?
Serena has, my girlfriend.
Okay. I just wanted to show you, I roasted this before I came. And there's 2 ways that I roast them, and this is what it looks like. I did this for a class at the Southwestern, the Virginia Southwestern Education Center, and they thought, oh my God, this is ruined. But do you know how to do it? Just set it right on the burner and just take some.
I've not done that. I've done that one.
Yeah, doing it in the oven is my preferred method, and I do that when I have bought a whole bunch of red peppers. But I have a hard time justifying heating up an oven for 1 pepper. And so if that's the case, just sit it on top of your burner and let it just char. And then you can just pull it off like this and then rinse it under your faucet. And it comes.
You just hold it over the gas?
You set it on there, just set it on the burner. And take a pair of tongs, don't do this with your hands, because you'll get a nice little scalding for that. Take a pair of tongs and just turn it as it chars, as it gets black, just flip it to another spot until the whole thing is clean. And then you can just rinse it under here. No, and then you just pull the seeds out. Pull the seeds. Oh, so that's all there is to it. But I just wanted to show how that's done. So once this has started cooking for a couple of minutes, go ahead and add the carrots. So that's about 2 medium carrots in there.
So it's just the potatoes and carrots right now?
Mm-hmm. I just used regular elbow macaroni for this. I'm going to take this piece of garlic before I forget about it and put it in here. Just make sure you stir this so these don't clump together. When you first put pasta into boiling water, it's better to put just a little bit at a time, let it go through that surge of bubbles, and then pour the rest of it in. And we'll keep an eye on this. This is getting there. My hearing. Now these potatoes, these are done. Okay, so we can turn this off now. I want to stir my chili and make sure it's still in good shape. Pardon me? I usually put about a half of one of these. I think I'm going to put 2/3 of one in here. You can just, and I put in you can use some red, any kind of onion, but about this much. This is a shallot. This is a shallot. And I've just peeled it, and you can just throw it in there like this. This is,
Are you making the sauce?
This is a cheese sauce. And this is a no cheese sauce. This is a 1/4 cup of lemon. We need a teaspoon of salt, a half a teaspoon of salt.
What kind of salt do you use?
I use the pink Himalayan salt. And the reason I use that is it doesn't have any fillers in it. It's got a few minerals. It's still, you should avoid salt of it, sodium, but if you're going to
Celtic sea salt?
I think it's fine if you're going to use salt, but it's better to not use it. But when I'm cooking for other people, I use salt because otherwise the food tastes bland to them. If you can stay away from salt for about like a 3-day juice fast will get you off of salt, and then everything tastes too salty. When I'm cooking for myself, I don't use salt very often. I use it when I make cheeses because it seems to need it more than anything
Can you
else.
try the sodium-free salt?
The what?
The sodium-free salt, you can get it at most grocery stores.
I've never tried that.
Yeah, it's actually, it's real close.
Oh, good. This is a half a cup of cashews. Cashews are the most fantastic thing in the world. You can do anything with cashews. You know what? I haven't timed this, did you? Okay, good. Cashews make cheeses, they make mayonnaises, they thicken sauces, you can make chowders with it with a thick creamy milk sauce. Cashews are just fantastic. There's just almost nothing you can't do with cashews. And the wonderful thing about cashews is that it thickens as it cooks. And so you can use it just like you can use heavy whipping cream. And again, it's a healthy. It does have fat in it. It's a healthy fat. Studies showed that people who ate nuts were lived longer, and had smaller waist circumferences than people who do not eat nuts. It doesn't seem to affect your weight. It doesn't affect your triglycerides. It doesn't affect, it doesn't affect you in a harmful way at all. And it actually improves endothelial function, whereas oil is a detriment to endothelial function, like I talked about earlier. Now, this is smart. I need this. Y'all have more than me.
So tell us everything in the blender.
I'm going to go ahead and use this that I didn't think I was going to need. This has
Garlic?
garlic, onion, roasted red pepper, cashews, potato, and carrots, and lemon juice. Okay, so I'm going to add some of this. No, it has no celery in it. Okay, so I'm going to put my earplugs on, cover your ears. I like to save a little bit of this pasta water because it thickens as well with all the starch in it. And I may go ahead and put the rest of this bell pepper in there because I like the color it gives it and I like the roasted flavor of it. Smells good. And these are all personal choices. Okay.
So it looks like cheese.
Got away from me.
Well, it certainly turned the right color.
I'm making a mess. Rich swears I can get food on the ceiling, and
That's
he's
part
right.
of cooking, though,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's why he's my sous chef.
Yeah.
He says it
That cleanup
means.
crew. Huh?
He says it means kitchen slave. Oops, I'm letting it get away from me. So there's your mac and cheese. And this is a great dish for feeding children because they're getting vegetables. I mean, it's just vegetables. It's vegetables and some nuts. These make fantastic nachos, and I have actually taken it to some vendors at the farmers market who are native Mexicans, and they could not tell the difference. And they just wiped it out. But you can just pour it on your and then you put whatever toppings you want on it. I use olives. Some jalapenos. If you don't like jalapenos, just eat around them. And some tomatoes.
Two big guys figure out.
And you can also put some onion in it. So there we have it. Everything's ready.